Hey Google, Cronulla surf conditions.
Displaying surf conditions on Project Windsurfer. Have a good surf, James.
G'day guys, my name is James, one of the ED co-founders, a content creator, and also a very mediocre surfer. Now what does surfing have to do with this video? Well, when I first started surfing, one thing I noticed is the ocean is very unpredictable. And this was kind of frustrating when it came to checking forecasts and knowing when the best time to go out surfing was. So James, are you trying to tell me that you're going to solve the unpredictability of the surf? No, that's obviously what wave pools are for. I'm not going to create a wave pool. Not yet anyway. What I've created is a little device that's able to aggregate surf data online and return them into an IoT database. So what does that mean? Let me just illustrate it for you. Right now around the world there are many surf models being used, but the problem with surf models is they're not as accurate as you may think. And the reason being is because you can't actually model a specific wave or swell. It's extremely hard to do. So what meteorologists do is actually model the energy that's in the water and distribute it between direction and period. And that's how they're able to do some calculations and mathematical formulas to give you things like surf height, period, and wind speed as well. Now, these are the things obviously we care about. We want to know what is going on out in the surf, and that's what we want to know. And the problem is, there's nothing that's purely accurate. So, as you know, when you check your favorite surf forecast, your surf might look something like this, even though you've been told it's 3 foot offshore, glassy, perfect conditions, but it's not. And this is what happens. Now the reason this may be the case is because the forecast that you're checking is based on statistical models. And the problem with these statistical models is they're very subjective based on location, uncertainties, and empirical formulas. So it's not always going to give you such an accurate result. Now, we're not going to make our own model here. That's not what the point of this is. That requires extensive meteorology research and being professional in that field. Instead, what I've created is this little devices I've mentioned, and inside here is an Arduino Nano RP2040, which has a Raspberry Pi chip inside of it and IoT capabilities. So the memory power is so impressive, making it perfect for this sort of application. So to break down how this thing works, is we're using a couple of different components here. So the first is Node-RED, which uses these flows, or as I like to imagine them, swim lanes. Now, the job of Node-RED is simply to be an explorer. So it explores the surf data online. And what it does is collects it at a command and then decodes a HTML and makes it into an object that's readable by the Arduino. So this is basically using code to be able to access the data online, scrape it itself, and then break it down. The next thing we have is something called Nora. Now, Nora is a smart integration trigger that links in with Google Home. Now, so Nora is put at the start of your Node-RED flow, and I like to think of this more as the delegator. It delegates when the exploration or the task needs to happen. So I've done this with Google Home, but I'm sure there's similar applications you can do for, say, Alexa or Siri or any other smart home assistant. Now, the good thing with Nora is once I've actually asked for a location, it triggers Node-RED to get data online for that location, make an average of it, and then pass it through what's called an MQTT broker. Now, an MQTT broker is like the messenger, right? So it involves both a broker and a client, us being the client, and there's a certain topic so you have to subscribe to. Now, when you get that data through the topic, it receives it as a message. So what we're doing is collecting this data, averaging it, and then putting it into an MQTT broker. The MQTT broker then sends it back to us. And the beauty about the Arduino is you can subscribe there to the MQTT broker. So the Arduino is more of the receiver. It receives the message, and then it decodes the object into a string. And that string is then put onto the LCD screen. And then when it's on the LCD screen, pretty much is at your own command. You can ask it for whatever location you've programmed it for, and being down here in the southern hemisphere, we've done a lot of the beaches down south here, and it's worked like a charm. Here's an example of how it works.
Hey Google, Gary surf conditions.
There was a glitch. Try again in a few seconds.
What? Hey Google, Gary surf conditions.
Displaying Gary Beach surf conditions.
Now there is actually a lot more than what I've explained for MQTT server protocols, and I'm going to cover that in the next video. But basically what I've made is this surf forecast database, like a mini weather station database. But something else I noticed when experimenting with Arduino's IoT is you don't have to make a weather station or a surf forecast app. You can literally make anything that uses automation or IoT as its foundation, right? You can create anything to be remote controlled in your house. You can create something to feed your pet, maybe a device to scare your neighbor. Though I wouldn't encourage you to scare your neighbor, and I won't be responsible for any injuries that might occur for that. Anywho, you can build security systems. You can build a food processing machine and have it automatically controlled. The point I'm trying to get at is the sky is really the limit with this sort of stuff, and you can expand your knowledge to learn anything. And I encourage you to watch the next video, which is going to be a tutorial on how I made this, how I got into the fundamentals of each component, how I break it down to show you how you can put everything together and create your dream project without having to spend thousands of dollars. So until then, guys, I implore that you hit the subscribe and notifications button to see how we did this, so you can hopefully come back and show us some cool projects you can do, and stay tuned with videos and podcasts that are yet to come.